welcome back to my vlog. So today is our second day in Rome and we started off our day visiting the Jewish Ghetto, and our first stop is the Rome's Great Synagogue. So this synagogue is actually one of the most fantastic Jewish synagogues around the world, where it has a magnificent internal design where there were a lot of decorations. It was beautiful as shown in the picture here. And this synagogue actually is a house of worship to all Jewish, no matter whether have you paid the membership fee to the synagogue or not. And it serves as the cultural and organizational center for the Jewish community of Rome, as well as a museum for visitors to visit, and as well as to know more about the Jewish community here in Rome. We were also briefed about the history of the Jews here in Rome, where they were actually integrated as part of the community here in Rome way before the 15th century. And it was not until the 15th century when the Catholic Counter-Reformation has begun, and the Pope was pressuring other religion citizens to convert their religion into Catholic. But because some Jews stood by their original religion, they were then deemed as not Catholic. So these non-Catholic people were then removed from Rome City into an undesirable flood zone inside a bend of the Tiber River, so which created a ghetto known as the Jewish Ghetto, where the Jews were limited to a certain area and only the men could travel outside to trade. And they had a gate where opens in the morning and closes at night. So the Jews were then restricted to this area, and thus it was said that the name of the ghetto might have came from the gates that was built around the area to constrain the Jews. And another theory about the name of ghetto is about divorce, which is get in Hebrew, which means divorce. And it's technically symbolizing the Jews being divided from their community among the Catholics in Rome before this Reformation started. It was only after the Italian unification in 1870s when the Jews were given full citizenship and were allowed to go out of the Jewish ghetto. And when Rome became the country's capital, so the city torn down the old ghetto because it was definitely not as appealing to the appearance, and thus the city has rebuilt in a modernized district and still name it the Jewish Ghetto because there was where the Jewish neighborhood was situated at. We then continued our day to the Colosseum, where it was very fascinating to see the structure of the Colosseum, where it was white on the outside. And it was beautiful because I've seen it only in pictures through courses that I've taken, and now to be able to experience it, to see it first-handedly, was definitely such an honor. And at the Colosseum, we learned about definitely the history of ancient Rome, where the Colosseum was used as a venue of entertainment, where they usually have 3 events. The first one would be hunting, where animals are released in the Colosseum, and hunters, which are usually professional warriors, would hunt them. And then the second event that usually happens after that is the execution, where serious offenders were executed by letting animals attack them and eat them. And the third event that follows that is the gladiator fights. So the Colosseum has 5 levels of seating, whether it's where it depends on your social status, with the most important people on the first floor and the not so important people on the fifth floor. Then we ended our day with a chocolate testing lab where we were presented with different types of chocolate and were told to taste them in accordance to how chocolatey they are, from the less chocolatey to the most chocolatey. So we started off with the cookie, and all of these delights are made as vegan delights. So there wasn't any baking, there wasn't any milk involved in making this sweets. So it was definitely a very different experience because I had previously um, went through a chocolate tasting where I was introduced to the history of cacao, about how it was the food of the god, and how it was definitely a very rarer than gold during a certain period of time, and it was only consumed by the royal family, by the king.